talk a little bit about Mythic Bastionland, which is quickly becoming probably my top 5 TTRPGs of all time. I had a hack at it a few months ago, and I think, although I'm very used to working with narrative-led games, I hadn't realised, I suppose, or I had realised because I watched the entire Quinns Quest review maybe twice, because just his reviews are brilliant, obviously, and it just sort of hit all the right notes. And I thought, okay, it's going to be super narrative led, it's going to be emergent gameplay, and I've played so many games like that I thought, well, this should be pretty easy actually. The reality was slightly different. I hadn't really read the rules properly. I was impatient. I was impatient, and so I just jumped straight into a game. I read the book a bit, I looked at PDFs a bit, I watched YouTube videos, which actually sometimes I find more confusing than anything else, because everyone has like a different version of what Mythic Bastionland is to them, depending on whether they're kind of a crunchy rules person, or just a storytelling environmental person, or you know what I mean. So interesting, because when I played that game before, I built the full 12 by 12 hex map. I populated it as the rulebook suggests that you do, and I actually had a really good time doing that, because I love making maps. I think if you're a dungeon master or a gaming master or a keeper or a warden or whatever you want to call it, rabble rouser, then building maps is like it's something very, very therapeutic, and it's like hiding things. It's like putting things in there, like little bits of sauce here and there, where you're like, if they find this, that'd be great, or kind of just little surprises and little callbacks to other games. I don't know, it's fun, isn't it? You're creating like a puzzle for people a sandbox for people to play in. And I think the reasons why people like running games for friends is because they want to sort of surprise and delight them a bit, if you know what I mean. Anyway, I ran the game. It was great, actually. It was fine. I'm not going to say that it just wasn't what it could be. And I guess that's always the case when you pick up a new system. Session 1 is always a bit, like flicking through the rules. Is that right? Is that how damage works? Is that how combat? Yeah, okay. When do you get a scar? And then also, no names mentioned, but someone at the table did not like the scar. I'm not going to go into too many rules with Mythic Bastionland. There are other places you can go and see that. I'm really just kind of picking on this particular TTRPG because it's brought me and my gaming companions a whole load of fun and joy. Joy. So it's not a word I normally use. Joy. But he didn't like that, this particular mechanic meant that, boom, he got a scar. Now, I think when you say scar, people who are used to other games that do this are like, oh no, that's it. All my ribs are broken, all my legs off. Oh, I've, whatever. I've grown another 7 willies, whatever it may be. But actually, the scars are quite useful in some cases in this game. It's well thought out because it's not always as debilitating as you think it's going to be, which is great. Anyway, by the by, that set a kind of a bit of a tone for, I don't like these rules. And I was like, yeah, I know that these rules are sound because I've watched Quinns Quest, I've scanned them, I've Into the Odd is a thing, Cairn is a thing that I'm used to. So I'm like, I know this is going to work, that it's just a little crunchier than those games. But yeah, I didn't get out of it what I wanted, I think, which was running through the myths. Again, not rules, but Mythic Bastionland is really in a league of its own at the moment, because in one way you can do loads of prep as a GM for this game. In another way, you can do like none. Well, not none, you can do a bit. Depending on time, that's great, right? If you've got all the time in the world, you've got Sunday free, bang. Knock yourself out with prep. If you haven't, then pick up the book, pick up the whatever, go play. But the game runs on all sorts of emergent gameplays, finding things on a dice roll that you might not find on a different dice roll. Vagaries in terms of prompts are everywhere. So if you're not the kind of GM who is good with or feels comfortable with reading a line or two that gives you a very vague outline of plot or tone or a scenario of some kind, then it's quite daunting actually. Each myth, of which there are generally 6 myths on a map hidden from the players, each myth has 6 omens, which are all in the book. Your average 12 by 12 hex map has a number of different locations on there. 6 of these are hexes have myths in them. Each myth has 6 omens. So rather wonderfully, when you're going through the book, which is an awesome book, a lot of it is taken up with, you'll have like a knight, so one of the playable character kits, and on the opposite page you'll have a myth, and then at the bottom of that page you'll have the 6 omens, and then you'll have like if there are any NPCs involved, and there's other stuff there as well, but basically you have the 6 omens. So the emergent play comes when the players are noodling through these hexes. You roll a wilderness dice, and it may be that you pick up on a local omen somewhere in the area, or a random one, or you pick up on the one that's closest to you, the myth that's closest to you, so the first omen. Now, each myth has 6 omens, and you have to go through those in order. Sometimes you're going to pick up one omen, maybe 2, and then the party's going to be, oh, well, I think we know how to deal with this. So they go straight, to the end, and they'll complete that myth. And if they complete the myth, then they get a glory point, and then glory points is what makes you become more of a professional knight, which is really exciting, really good fun. But it also means that when you're juggling potentially 6 myths with 6 omens each, and then you're like, it's confusing for the players, it's confusing for the GM. So this time around, I did a 6x6 map. I only plotted out 2 myths, but what I actually did this time, and in my opinion, and my players I think would say the same, is that because I really do like some set pieces, when I built the map out, I did the 2 random myths. I put where the Seers are, I put where the landmarks are, the monuments, which also have they're kind of useful because you can rest at a monument and get your spirit back, and spirit's really important. And if you go to a sanctum or sanctuary, sanctum, I think, you can go and find your local lunatic seer, and seers are really good for helping you to. They're a bit like Basil Exposition in Austin Powers. It's like you're stuck. Well, find me the biggest shrub in the forest, and I'll tell you a secret. So they can kind of fast track myths for you a bit, and answer all kind of questions about the realm that you're in. So that's really cool. But in terms of set pieces, I do quite like there to be like an overarching, not narrative, but the world that you're in, like a set couple of kind of like dungeons that aren't myths, they're just kind of places to be explored. Throw in a couple of kind of cool magical items that don't mess with the mechanics. where was I? I was talking about the idea of using magic items. So set pieces, I guess these things are kind of like familiar grounding things. So I threw in a magic weapon in a chest, which one of my players found, and basically the sword that is the treasure was shaped like a leaf, which is kind of cool. And then it has some really, I think, nice narrative effects around it. Nothing that mucks around with the mechanics of the game, because I don't know them well enough to start doing that. I've definitely fallen foul of that before. It's like, yeah, I have this sword, it does this. Oh, I just broke the game. Now I have to take that sword away, and now you're sad, I'm sorry. So I'm not doing that, but some cool narrative effect. So I like set pieces because I feel like, although I do take on the myths, the omens within the within the myths, I take all that on board and I love it. I do think that sometimes there needs to be something that I and the players can kind of hold on to. And I'd make the same, it's not an analogy, but I'd say that it's relevant to the issue that, take a game like, if you played it or were aware of it, a game like Sea of Thieves, which is a fantastic game by Rare, but when it was released, a lot of the reviews were, no pun intended, but it's very wide but shallow. There's not a lot going on, in terms of depth of the game, which I understand. I thought it was amazing. I still do, actually. I don't play it that often anyway. But I think, in the months and years afterwards, obviously more things were put into the game to make it feel more immersive, deeper, the lore, the items, the places you went to, all that kind of thing. Volcanic destinations and all this stuff. But crucially, at a certain point, they started putting in kind of through-line quests, plots you could follow. And that became kind of just anchoring pieces, which I feel like with Mythic Bastionland, and I love it as it is, but I don't see any problem at all with putting in a few things in there that aren't myths, aren't omens, places and things that happen that make the world kind of your own as a GM and as players. The emergent gameplay stuff and the omens, they are fantastic. So, and the players, I suppose, can infer a through line, although when you read through the omens, they are really just prompts. They are things that are happening, which the players can choose to engage with or not. So an example might be, there's a bunch of kids, dicking around in a field, and they're wearing like skull masks or bits of wood with skulls painted on them. So the players are like, dun 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 dun, and I've made a reference to the popular Monty Python film, The Holy Grail, there. If you haven't seen it, please go and see it. But they canter up and they're like, kids, what for art thou doest? And the kids are like, oh, no, and they're waving sticks and stuff. And so that is the first step. That's the first omen, one of 6. The next omen, if they come across it, and they might not, will be something equally potentially as cryptic. So I think when I first played, the players, I think, were, because they weren't used to the kind of idea of Mythic Bastionland, whether I had all the answers, because, but you don't, I don't. I am just as much kind of like, I've read the omens and I've read, this, but they are a creative device. They are something that you cast out and the players bite or they don't. I guess worst case scenario is if they're feeling super lost, then eventually they're going to find a seer, and then the seer is a bit like a kind of device to help the players, it's what is your favourite colour or whatever. It's like there's another reference to the Holy Grail. I'm all over it today. So they'll be like, oh, okay, so maybe look at the tomb yonder, and there you shall answer questions 3 and blah blah blah, all this stuff. So Seer might fast track you towards the end of a quest if you've kind of fallen off the. I wouldn't call it a golden path because it's not golden. It's not breadcrumbs. It's more like I don't know, like you've laid down a load of chocolate and someone's come and eaten some of it, and now your path's kind of ruined. That's really crap. But you get my drift. That it really is a case of the players are picking up crumbs. You as the games master are kind of, like building that. And then the players are grabbing onto that and then going, right, well, let's go find the next part of this. Because if they do complete a myth, then they do get glory. And points mean prizes. So I think that's probably an idea of what Mythic Bastionland is like. It's a sandbox. Very cool sandbox. And as I say, like, one of the things about Mythic Bastionland is that even if you didn't like the idea of the kind of ephemeral nature of it, it's hard to pin down. Still, as an aid for a dungeon master, I think that, like anyone who's a keen DM should buy it. Obviously also help out an indie publisher. But buy it because the first sort of 12 pages are the rules. 12 pages is not a lot in terms of rules. I read them a couple of times. I didn't quite get them the first time, the second time. Now I'm kind of like, oh, I'm getting there. But you could lift those rules wholesale and put it in any environment you wanted. The legwork then becomes you designing the character kits that go into that environment, right? But the core mechanics are so sound. Like the combat mechanics are, in my opinion, way more interesting than Dungeons and Dragons. There's something about it where it kind of flips, left and right, and you have decisions to make which are really crucial for you and your party of knights. And it's not just like kind of, hey, I cast Fireball. Again? Yeah, again. I hit it with my sword. I have a bonus. You know how I feel about bonus actions. I don't like bonus actions. But you could take those rules and lift them completely. So that's the first 12 pages. The next wodge of the entire, and for a much better example of this review, please go find Quinns Quest and watch his review of Mythic Bastionland, because he goes into all of the detail that I'm not. But the big wad of the book are your knights and your myths on page, all the way through. And little prompts and spark tables here and there, to get things you need off the cuff. The weather, people's names, what they're dressed in, what their attitude is, what armour they're wearing, all that kind of stuff, all spark tables. And then the back of the book is just like a bunch of pages of, so this is how we played the game, as in the creator of the game, whose name escapes me right now, because I'm in the woods and I haven't got the thing with me. I could look on my phone, but that's boring for you. But I'll put it in the notes, obviously. But it's him, I guess, or someone playtesting the game. So you get a block of like what's happened, and then you get another block, another paragraph, which is basically thoughts on what's happened. So for a GM, that's kind of priceless, because you're actively witnessing gameplay from the designers of the game, and then how they feel about their own game as they're playing it, and a kind of bits of advice here and there. It's really useful, really good. So if you're daunted by rule books, then it's one book. I guess it's what you call like a capsule game, because I suppose there is a finite amount of it that you could play, although I don't know when that ends, to be honest. Understanding more and more about the game is that it really can go anywhere. But it's kind of like rules, nice and thin, bit more than Into the Odd, or whatever, but still kind of super slim. And then you've got all everything you need to play the game, and then you've got this kind of outro, which is like kind of more of like a holistic view of what the game is. So really, really, really useful. Anyway, I've gone on a massive, slightly dull tangent there, really, but the idea is, why is that? Why? 'Tis a heron. Now I've gone really off track. Spotted a bird. So, what I'm going to pull myself into, we covered the emergent gameplay. The game is awesome for that. If you just want to chill out and have fun with allowing the game to engulf you, that's great. There's definitely no railroading in this game. I mean, if the GM tried to railroad you, it would be, even they wouldn't know what they were doing, right? So it's not a case of that. It's a case of proper questing, like in the truest sense of the Knights of the Holy Grail. They were sent off on a mission to find something that could be a physical item, everlasting life, the truth, whatever you want to put against that thing, or it's just it's a symbol of, I don't know, unity or faith or whatever it is, that Arthur needed to wrangle his realm into some semblance of something that wasn't chaos. So in the same way, you feel this energy from this game at any given moment, which is like, this is proper fantasy. So Dungeons & Dragons is a mishmash of loads of times and place. It's high fantasy. It's high fantasy with all the gubbins that people have brought to it over the years. It's a bit of steampunk sometimes. It's medieval sometimes. It's far-flung desert bazaars. Or it's wonderful for that. Is D&D. But what Mythic Bastionland does is puts you in a very easy to envision space. It is visceral. Riding around on a horse, trampling someone with your horse, that's a D6, oh, it's a D8, I don't know. Different horses, different tramples, I don't know. But anyway, you can hit someone with while you and your buddy, side by side on horses, wielding morning stars, are about to clobber someone who's trying to get away. And if it's a peasant, so much the better. I just reminded me of another line from the Holy Grail about being covered in shit. Anyway, it feels like that though. It feels like a bit like, obviously Holy Grail, if you bring that humour into it. It feels like Excalibur. It feels like, I don't know, like, what's the one with Richard Gere and a dragon? And stuff like that. But you know where you are, right? It's night, isn't it? But there's enough magic going on, but not too much that it's too explosive or silly. The Seers are weird and wonderful and amazing. It's a bit of a touch of Alice in Wonderland. Proper Arthurian knightly fantasy. And if you geek out about that stuff, apart from Pendragon, which is another great game, I prefer Mythic Bastionland, then you're going to have endless fun with this thing. I'm really interested to know how other people run it, because I've only run 2 sessions and I plan to do a ton more, whether my players want to or not. I'm going to get good at running this game, because I really love playing. DMing it, I really want to play it too at some point. I really want to play it. If anyone wants to invite me onto their online game, just please do. I'm coming. I shall bring my morning stars with me. So, yeah, I want to play loads more of it. What is interesting is that there are 2 actual play YouTube channels that I really like. Let's list this out while I'm here, shall we? The Adventure Zone, not YouTube, but the best actual play is a boat, particularly the Balance Arc. I think I've mentioned that before. Love it. Used to like Critical Role, got a bit tired of it, a bit too much acting for me. Mystery Quest, dude. That channel, I just said dude, I'm sorry. Apparently I'm from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure now. But that is a fantastic, it is very British, and the humour is much more in line with what I'm used to, I guess. It is funny, but it is great. And the DM, I'm bad with names. I'd love to play at his table. So, again, if you ever watch this, invite me. I'm coming. I bring my own sandwiches. It's okay. The other one that I really love is 3D6 Down the Line, who exclusively, by the name of the channel, I guess, play old school, Renaissance, old school. What else can we say the R means? There's another one, isn't it? Can't remember. But old school kind of games. And the Dungeon Master is very rule specific in that game. In all the games that he plays, which I really like too. He's definitely more of the kind of rules, bit of crunch, very deliberate way of DMing, which again I really enjoy. But it's very, very different from the more kind of narrative, high concept games that you'll find on Mystery Quest, or of course Critical Role. But recently, both these channels have started covering Mythic Bastionland within the same matter of weeks as each other, which is, for me, was like awesome, because I want to hear how other people are and see how other people are playing this game. And the difference was marked. Like, Mystery Quest is, as expected, funny, the way they're playing it, but also with a very light touch, like a Chris Perkins, if you remember that, him, my favourite GM. Very light touch indeed, letting the players have all the room to breathe they want and create the story as they go. Few dice are rolled, apart from in combat, because they don't often need to be. I'm very much of the, if a thing's going to happen, don't roll a dice and get in the way of it. How dull's that? What I listened to yesterday, I found really interesting. It was someone who was saying that if, oh God, it's silly really. Someone's saying that, who's the other really good Dungeon Master? God, I should know these people's names really. Matt Mercer's doing Critical Role with him now. Dimension 20, that guy. Anyway, his name's on the tip of my tongue. But he was kind of a bit like poked at because he didn't make someone make a charisma check when they had, like been so persuasive in their, in their telling of in character, their role playing. He's like, don't bother rolling a dice because you've basically, that's so convincing and so heartfelt. Don't roll a dice, you've done it. I love it when that happens because that means people are invested in your game. If someone's pouring their heart out, and I've been on the end of this before actually, and I don't like it, where I'm like, okay, I'm going to really put my heart into why this shouldn't happen or why they shouldn't hang that man because, he's innocent and blah, blah. And then the DM's just like rolling a dice, or you're rolling a dice rather, you roll low after giving that heartfelt, impassioned speech and you roll a 2 and then you feel your heart sink because you're like, all that effort for nothing. And next time you don't bother role-playing it, because you're like, why put in all the effort? It's all about the dice roll and not about the game, or the interaction with the game, which is a role-playing game. Whereas 3D6 Down the Line, again, I love it, but I feel like that's much more kind of by the book, and they were sort of struggling in their first episode. And they had an episode 0 and then episode 1. There was some struggling with the kind of the moving in a difficult fashion from one rule system to another. So something like Dolmenwood or OSR, or moving from one thing to something that is very much an emergent sandbox game. You could almost like feel the stiffness in everything until I think by episode 2 they were starting to get more comfortable with it, and the Dungeon Master, John, I think his name is, was also becoming more comfortable with it. I guess like me, he'd run session 1 and thought, this isn't going well, because it's really different. And then by session 2, you're kind of relaxing into it, and I guess letting Vecna take the wheel, or whatever. So anyway, moral of the story. Get Mythic Bastionland. You won't regret it. Even if you just use it as a reference book for how to be, a really good dungeon master, get it. The podcasts that I've mentioned, or the channels mentioned, are 3D6 Down the Line. Those guys, if you get on their channel and hype them on YouTube, I love them. I find them very soothing, actually. I often listen to those guys when I'm sort of on my way to falling asleep at night, and that's not me belittling them. It's just because I just find the way they play very soothing. It reminds me of playing when I was a kid, basically. Mystery Quest. Those guys are funny. If you like Call of Cthulhu, I don't think they've ever played D&D on their channel, as far as I can tell. But you know, Cthulhu, now Bastionland, Mothership. Pick one, Delta Green. So many. And then the Adventure Zone. I mean, just listen to the first balance arc. Had me in tears. Not just me. There's a whole Reddit subreddit there for you to explore. What else? Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes. But yeah, so I think I've probably gone through this as much as I feel that I can. I'm going to play Mythic Bastionland again probably this weekend. And I'm going to think about this as I'm playing it a bit more. Because I think that it's one of those games where it's kind of an instant classic, but I think also easily forgotten because it's such a small, you know, it's not going to be up there with the Shadow Darks and the Paizo's, Pathfinders and of this world, or D&D obviously, but it deserves to be among the you know, the greats because it's just astounding as a piece of work, and it is the first really innovative rule set that I've seen in years. I mean, the combat you could just transplant from this game into any game and it would instantly make that combat better. So for that alone, I mean, yeah, wicked. Thanks for Quinns Quest for making stupidly crazy long form and detailed videos, because I think because of Quinns Quest I probably bought 3 deluxe box sets of games that I would never probably gone to before. So yeah, he owes me, like, I want some commission or something, I don't know what it is, something. I think he owes me money, or lots of us money. Anyway, gonna go. Thanks.